Welcome to the Performing Animal Rights podcast, where we explore the intersection of creative practice and animal rights activism. I'm your host, Ben Hunt, performing artist and researcher in performance studies and animal rights. Each episode, I sit down with artists, campaigners, and creators who are using their craft to challenge the way we think about animals, nature, and our place within it. Today, I'm joined by Rob Pownall, founder and CEO of Protect the Wild. Rob started the organisation 10 years ago on the day of recording. Starting as a Facebook group, now it's one of the UK's most dynamic voices for wildlife protection, campaigning to end hunting, shooting and badger persecution. In this episode, we talk about the creative journey of Protect the Wild, from slogans and social shares to producing some of the most impactful animations in the movement. Rob shares the thinking and strategy behind these hard-hitting videos, how creative content is reaching millions and why it's changing the way people engage with animal rights. We explore how the arts and especially animation can offer both a powerful truth and a protective distance, giving activists a new kind of access to public emotion and attention. Before we begin, I want to let you know about the brand new Substack newsletter, where I share deeper insights into the role of performance and activism, behind the scenes reflections and extended conversations from the podcast. You can subscribe to the newsletter, as well as find previous podcast episodes, blog posts and more at performinganimalrights.org. Let's get into it. Thank you so much for coming along, Rob, and talking about your amazing work. So 10 years since you started it all to this day. So take us back to the beginning. What started it all off? What was the spark?
Oh, God. Right. Good question. It has been a long old time, 10 years. I guess, and this is going to be an annoyingly poor answer, there wasn't some breakthrough moment where I came across a stranded, injured animal and suddenly made this connection. I was a very different person 10 years ago as a 16-year-old. I wasn't a very nice person. I was a lot more stubborn, closed-minded, and was more on the right politically. I came across a petition about David Cameron trying to legalize fox hunting, and this petition on change.org sought to stop those efforts and to say, no, the 2004 Hunting Act needs to remain in place. We need to keep the ban on fox hunting. I saw this petition, signed it more out of an anger that the Tories were trying to do this. I didn't know too much about fox hunting. I didn't know much about the issue of hunting at all, more broadly. I was just shocked and surprised to see that something like fox hunting could be made legal in 2015 again. So at the bottom of this petition, it had a Facebook group link, and that group was to do with the petition. I joined it and started seeing people posting about, the issue of fox hunting, their anger about what was going on. I realized there wasn't like a single Facebook page that existed for this specific pressure campaign. So for the campaign to end, so to keep the ban on fox hunting. So that's what I did. I set up a Facebook page, called it Keep the Ban, and slowly but surely over the years grew that page. Started to really care about the issue, saw more stuff in my timeline on Facebook to do with animal rights in general and about the issue. I watched more, I read more, I got educated on, the ins and outs of what actually goes on, the smokescreen that is trail hunting. And so I became impassioned by the subject over those coming months. My timeline changed from really disgusting, not nice, right-leaning rubbish that was on my Facebook feed to more progressive, animal cruelty-based content. And as a result, I educate myself not just on this issue, but many other issues as well, which was an interesting thing to have happened. And yeah, for fast forward 10 years, we're sat here to this day. It's our 10-year anniversary since that Facebook page was set up, which is quite cool. We've now got a team of about a dozen or so really dedicated, brilliant people who are doing everything from creating animations, writing reports, producing articles, doing really tough research, undercover investigations, You name it, we do it. If it's legal and helps protect British wildlife, we're doing it. And as of right now, of course, our three main areas of work are around ending hunting, shooting, and ending the badger cull. So yeah, that's where we are today.
Amazing. Yeah, that's so interesting. I didn't know that you so did the fox hunting stuff just open the door to everything else then? Was there any animal cruelty stuff on your radar before then? Or was it the fox hunting that got you interested?
I think if I have a strong memory of when I was at school. It must have been year 8 or year 9. So I would have been 14 or 15, and they played footage of suffering. And I remember like walking out, I left the room, couldn't watch it, was really pissed off and upset that they'd played it. I complained about the teacher, said they should never have
Oh,
showed it. And then a year or so went by, nothing happened. I didn't go vegetarian. I didn't think about animal suffering again. I didn't see any of it online. So this really was the gateway for me in being exposed to all different types of animal cruelty, not just the issue of fox hunting. It's why I'm so big on how this particular issue and the issue of wildlife persecution can be such a good entry point for people to become informed more broadly about the suffering of animals within the farming industry. Because it's an easy one where, most people are anti-hunt. Most people, 95% of people you speak to realistically are going to be anti-fox hunting. There's no degree of moral guilt or someone feeling like they're attacked, or you don't have to change your way of life or what you eat or what you consume or what you do on a daily basis. And so we can galvanize and bring together so many people under this issue that most people are already against. I mean, that's our secret long-term plan and mission with Protect the Wild. It's to get all of these people who we've brought under the Protect the Wild banner to start being exposed and to all of these other forms of animal suffering going on. Of course, we originally started mainly as an anti-fox hunting group, and now we look at everything from the badger cull to the bird shooting industry and raptor persecution, the tens of millions of birds being bred and released in this country every year to be shot out of the sky. We look at hare coursing, hare hunting, deer hunting, and we also look at other forms of suffering and killing that happens to wildlife, whether that be the infrastructure and planning bill that's being proposed by the government and the disastrous effects that could have for British wildlife more broadly across the country too. And we've got huge plans to become this umbrella type group that has under it all of these different campaigns advocating for different animals for different reasons. Yeah, if I hadn't have come across that petition, it wouldn't have then led me to befriend and, like pages related to it. My Facebook algorithm would have stayed in this toxic, really right-leaning place where groups like Britain First were all over my feed. And I was in a position as a naive and very angry teenager at an all boys grammar school where everyone around you is thinking the same things and lacking empathy for others, really. It was through the issues that I discovered I was able to empathize and open up more to other people as well, not just animals. So I'm big on trying to bring in as many people as possible. Protect the World is all about and has been from day one. How do we make these issues mainstream? How do we try different techniques and strategies and do the things that are needed to push this issue, not just fox hunting, but all of these issues affecting wildlife into the public eye? Because as of the last few years before Keep the Ban was created, I was angered and frustrated the lack of understanding and public awareness and public knowledge of these issues. It was such an echo chamber, small, tight-knit animal rights community that existed online that already knew about these things, but the wider public really didn't know too much about what's going on. And I'm sure in the rest of this call can speak more about all of the different ways we've tried to make these issues a mainstream issues.
yeah, absolutely. That's fascinating. It's fascinating you went from a Facebook group to this incredible not-for-profit organization. I'd love to pick your brains on that more, but you're absolutely right. The strategy that you implement, and it's interesting you say about how, I mean, anti-fox hunting groups have been around for like forever. I mean, you could point towards it being the beginning of the animal rights movement in a way, the SABs and and the direct action groups. But you're right, there's this element of like it stays within a specific circle, whether that's because it just doesn't reach the right people, the footage is too much, or it's just not cutting through. But one of your strategies, which one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you was the like incredible striking use of media, especially the animations and how you communicate really traumatic things, but in a specific way that cuts through to large swathes of audiences. So, I mean, can you speak to that? I mean, is that the start, or is that the main start for that, or can you track back to another strategy that you used, or I mean, that's the creative strategy that really caught my eye, and what's really got me excited is the animations. But yeah, I'd love to hear more about that and the journey to that point and from then on.
Yeah, I mean, stage one in terms of it's funny looking back at the last 10 years, it feels like, and it's easy to look at it like there was this clear strategy in place, and you can see all these different phases that have happened and the things that have worked. But ultimately, it all just came down to me as an individual on a day-to-day basis, figuring out the algorithms naturally. There was none of this has ever been written down. I've never produced some sort of report looking at why we've done X, Y, and Z. It's come out of a desperation and an obsession with the issue of how do we break through and tailor the content to each platform. And I mean, phase one in the first 5 to 7 years of Protect the Wild, obviously then called Keep the Ban, it was about producing simplistic, slogan-based, emotive content, not making the issue tricky or complex, conveying the issue as being black and white. It's completely wrong, shouldn't be happening, and ensuring the content was as shareable as humanly possible. And I'm not going to pretend, I mean, if there weren't hunt sabs and monitors out on the ground filming actually what is going on, I'd have no organization. Like Protect the Wild very much was very lucky. Like I came into a space where there was an existing huge group of brilliant activists securing the footage and showing what was happening. Without that evidence at the base, I wouldn't have been able to set up what I have. I'm very aware of that. And we've made mistakes. You know, we've shared stuff and posted stuff and haven't credited properly. And I'm very apologetic to the groups when where that has happened. You know, I was a teenager, not paying myself for any of this for years and years and years in my bedroom, chucking out stuff with no intention of ever, you know, getting to the point where it's my job or even turning it into an organization. It was very much this passion project. And, you know, I over time learned the things that worked. And the things originally that worked were getting very slogan based text, minimal images and videos saying this is disgusting, share if you agree, like if you agree. And it quickly grew this base of tens of thousands of people, specifically because, I mean, it just sounds so sad to say this is what I did, but you can still do it now. You can manually click on the people that have liked a Facebook post, and it might be 1,000 people. You'd click on it, and you can manually invite every single person to like your page. And I found about 1 in 4, 1 in 5 people did then end up doing that. So I was like, oh, hang on, there's something here. As long as I just commit to spending an hour and a half a day every day for years, manually inviting every single person that's liked any post, I will have a page that guaranteed will be on X number of followers. So if I can ensure that every single post is tailored around people sharing it so that all of the people liking it and then not a new people, new users that aren't already following us, then I'm onto something. And then we did weird things like creating online Facebook events where we'd ask our existing followers to then invite their friends list because you can do it in one click. You can invite 500 friends all to like a page. And then we shot up 20 to 30,000 followers within, I think, a 24-hour period was like our best online event. And it was realizing early on not to feel any shame in just relentlessly asking people to do stuff, asking people follow, like this, share this. It's not costing people anything. If people find it annoying, they can block or unfollow and easily not see the content. I think there's too much of it in the space where groups feel bad for asking for things or feel like they shouldn't be relentlessly plugging themselves. But from day one, I've had no issue in doing that. We've had no sort of degree of shame, if you like. The issue's horrific. We need people seeing it. We want to build a following to stop it. I don't think there's anything bad about doing that. So that's what we've done. And once we had then that base of people, and I graduated uni and set up the proper organization that we have today. We're a limited company by guarantee, so a non-profit structure. It was then about thinking, right, how do we take things to the next stage? At that point, we had a core audience of about 500,000 people on Facebook, and we wanted to professionalize a bit. What content can we make ourselves? Can we produce more of our own actual work? It's all very well endlessly, sharing and posting up what is the bulk of it footage from activists on the ground. We needed to actually make our own things and do more of our own work. And in many respects, that initial period of 5 to 6 years before we became a proper organization, we didn't do enough. We'd built a huge following of people. There was millions of people seeing the stuff and being educated. We hadn't achieved very much. We'd done a few protests and demos. It was very much still just, well, we've made a big Facebook page. So phase two was then sitting there and thinking, right, what can we make? Admittedly, I came across, because I'm so obsessed with the issue, I came across this brilliant animation that was made, I believe, for the Hunt Stab Association by Ben Sinclair, by the animator. I must have saw it on YouTube years and years ago, thought it was brilliant, Googled the guy's name, looked him up, was like, right, I need to have a meeting with him. We should definitely make something. And it was more of a bit of a stab in the dark. It was a bit of a test run of, let's put something together and see how it goes and see what the reaction is. And we looked at what is the issue we're campaigning on. Obviously, fox hunting. What is the major problem we've got as a movement? It's, well, we need to communicate that trail hunting is rubbish. There's a complete, I thought at the time, and still is to some degree, the public don't fully understand the lie of trail hunting, what trail hunting is supposed to be, and how hunters use it as this ridiculous cover for illegal hunting. That's what the mission was. It was to produce a 5-minute film that completely nailed and destroyed and summarized what the lie of trail hunting is. The fact that hunts supposedly go out and follow an artificial scent trail across the countryside, but how this is used in reality as a means of continuing to hunt and kill wildlife. And that's what we did. We teamed up with Chris Packham, who agreed to narrate it, which was brilliant. And then we posted it out. We posted it on Twitter, on Facebook, and it did fairly well. It got several 100,000 views. I think what was the really interesting part was the actual data capture side of things. In terms of organizational growth, we gained, I think it was around 30,000 signatures in the day or two that the film was released, which was really decent, but 10,000 of which then joined our mailing list, which at the time we were on 3 or 4,000 emails on our system. To then gain 10,000 from one film, it was a real eye opener of, wow, of course, data is everything. It still is to this day in terms of how you can then communicate with those people, ask them to do things, and ultimately ask them to donate, buy products, and help you do more as an organization. So integral. And from that point on, it was clear that this was a really good creative means of storytelling and putting out an issue and getting people aware in a way that was non-graphic, that was shareable, and that people felt comfortable and happy to send it to a mate or to send it to your mum. It wasn't something that was off-putting and graphic and hard to digest. But there's also takeaways that we realized, that didn't quite work. We went with the YouTube style format. It wasn't vertical, which now would be like, why would you make any sort of video in that way? Of course, this was sort of before the TikTok, Instagram short form video era. But yeah, it was a brilliant experiment that like really paid off in terms of what we were capturing on the back end. And it was a good test study for all of the future films. And knowing that there's something in this, it wasn't just a novelty. It wasn't just this will be nice to do as a creative thing. Tangibly, it was proof that it could be like hugely effective in terms of growing ourselves as an organization. And I think since then we've made at least 15 to 20 separate films since then, and our plans for next year to double our output. So we're planning on making at least 20 films for next year, and like going to town on them because they're working. Yeah, I could ramble all day. I'm sure you've got follow-up questions in regards to maybe some of those 15 to 20 that we've made over the last few years. But yeah, that's sort of the origin story of how the first animation came to be, and then what prompted us to want to make more.
Yeah, that's fascinating. The growth you just described there is just incredible. Just to hear the power of this initial video. There's loads to pick apart there. I mean, the aesthetics of it, because they're so moving, and it'll be interesting to pick your thoughts about the psychology behind it all. Has the creative process changed? Like you said at the beginning, you approached, is it Ben Sinclair, the animator, to say, I'd like to do something like you did before, just exposing the fox hunting industry and what goes on. Was it a case of just brainstorm and see what happens and see what happens, or was there a specific kind of, I want it to look like this and this is the storyboard, or has that evolved? Has that changed? What's the creative process with it at the beginning to now?
Yeah, I'm trying to actually remember what that process was. I'm like very, very heavily involved in the storyboarding and what's shown, maybe weirdly so. A lot of the times I'm sort of asking Ben to change bits. With that original film, it was, I think I asked for a certain length of film to be made. We had the vague outline of these are the key points we want to get across. Like, this is the key evidence we have. These are the scenes we need to show around the leaked hunting office webinars. For people listening, have not got a clue what I'm talking about. There were these webinars hosted by the most senior hunting officials a few years back, and in those webinars that were hacked into by anti-hunt activists, they were caught admitting to each other how trail laying can be used as a plausible smokescreen for fox hunting. It was like the biggest thing to have happened for the anti-hunt movement. It led to major landowners then banning trail hunts on their land. The police and the press could no longer sort of hide behind the lies. So that was a core part of the film. We needed to ensure that that was part of it. We obviously had different data and numbers that we needed to put into it as well. It's interesting how that creative process has changed though, because there wasn't any talk or any real planning around retention or how the opening 5 seconds needs to work, or the fact that is it problematic that the film lasts about 5 minutes long, which nowadays would never make one as long. It took several months to make. Yeah, so many years ago now, I'm just struggling to, yeah, that's as clear as I can be in terms of what that process was like. But going into the ones we make now, I very much oversee each one specifically around how the algorithm works for short form video content. And we just go by a few key rules. Rule one being immediate action and animal suffering of some kind needs to be shown in the first 5 seconds. Like, people give you about 3 or 4 seconds of leeway before they decide whether to swipe or not. You need some degree of shock or intrigue or some action that's either about to happen or is clearly already taking place. There's no room for long storytelling or building up too much of a personal story of the animals being shown, which has been tricky at times with Ben. As a brilliant, like, creative mind, there's a tendency for animators and, people in the arts to want to tell more of a story and have those more traditional structures for the things that they make. And then it's me from a mindset of looking at graphs of retention of the opening first few films and realizing, this one did not work because quite simply it was too boring in the first 4 seconds. There was too much build up, and there was just a animal looking like fairly happy for a few seconds, and there's not that suspense or intrigue, or you need to immediately show there's an issue here going on, and then how is that going to be solved within the film. And there, so I'm very much in charge of the overarching storyline and ensuring that those key rules are established and used. And it's about, there's been so many learnings of another type of rule that we've found is people want you to be relatable. Like, you've got to constantly put yourself in the mindset of someone just scrolling aimlessly on social media. No one is on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram really to be educated or to think deeply or critically about an issue. And we shouldn't have an ego or just think because we care so much and are so passionate about these issues that someone, just mindlessly scrolling is gonna see something for a few seconds and then immediately get it and care and be sucked in and watch the whole thing. We need to entertain. Like, ultimately, people are there to find a distraction, a dopamine hit, and they want entertainment. And that's what you need to provide. And I think too many groups are afraid of feeling like, oh, well, we shouldn't be making entertaining stuff out of something that's horrific and involves the suffering of animals, which to some degrees, there's obviously some truth. We don't want to be glorifying it or trivializing it or showcasing what's going on in a way that's purely just about keeping someone there viewing. You have to have a clear call to action. You have to clearly, obviously, show you're against the thing that's happening, and you need a clear structure and an end point where you're saying, we are as an org against this. This is what you can tangibly do. Please do it. But it's also being understanding of the fact that why these animations work is because they are nice to watch. People, I think, respect the fact that there's artistry, that there's time being put into the creation of the content, especially the rise of AI and the masses of stuff being posted. You have to be a cut above. You have to be making stuff that stands out, which sounds so cliche, but the high production levels of these pieces ultimately are rewarded. The algorithms are annoying at times, but are also super rewarding because we know for a fact that if the content's good enough, people will stick around and watch it, and they will then be pushed hard as pieces of content and they will be seen. And it's about being confident in that. And also, yeah, ensuring that each film that's being made is entertaining and it's blending both. You can still entertain whilst then delivering an educational message at the end too, and being relatable too. I think a lot of groups and animal rights activists, we obviously always getting criticized for being preachy or just banging straight in your face and saying this is horrific, like you're to blame, this is a problem that you need to be immediately waking up to, blah. And it's like people immediately feel threatened, they get defensive. Of our best performing films open with the narrator themselves saying the line, I didn't realize this still happens, or I had no idea of X, Y, and Z, or I knew this happened, I didn't quite understand it was this bad. Because these are the exact lines, almost word for word, that people in their heads are gonna also be thinking when watching. And it's about realizing that we're trying to hit that audience. We're trying to hit all of those people who were like me back in the day, who on social media would never come across animal cruelty content. And I speak to friends and they admit to me, I ask to see their feeds on Facebook or Instagram, and you could scroll for an hour and you wouldn't find a single footage or media piece related to animal rights or animal cruelty. But then to someone in the space, it's almost inconceivable. I mean, half of my feed at least will be to do with animal groups or animal issues. And we forget the fact that for 90% of the public, they're never seeing a lot of this stuff. And they don't want to watch graphic, cruel, shocking, real life footage. You just scroll by. You're there to be passively entertained and to not really be attacked. And you're there for that very specific purpose. And I think that's why the animations have been proving successful and are doing big. It's because they tap into the exact reasons people are on each platform. They tailor specifically to what people are wanting, not just trying to put out something graphic and shocking and expecting someone immediately to be liking, sharing, and viewing it. Because why would you? I mean, I wouldn't want to be scrolling on my feed and watching footage of a hound being shot dead in the head. And this is what we saw. We were one of the first groups ever to produce an undercover investigation into a hunt shooting dead their hounds. We know it happened. We know it was a thing for years, but it hadn't been properly filmed and proved. And then we got this amazing footage. And if it wasn't for ITV News, who brilliantly allowed it to be aired and did a whole piece on it, when it came to our own publishing of that content on Twitter, it reached about 2,000 views. On Instagram, within an hour, it was completely removed and taken down, too graphic. We don't want to share it. So then we had this huge issue. Like, we've got arguably one of the most groundbreaking, high impact films ever that's going to destroy hunting and prove once and for all that this is how hunts dispose of healthy young foxhounds when they no longer want them. But no one was seeing it. We couldn't get anyone to view it. And if people did see it on their feeds, you're not going to want to share something that graphic to a family member or friend. So we had a real issue specifically with that piece of footage and in how do we get it seen. We know obviously the animations that we'd produced at that point were the main Trail of Lies video. I believe we may have done one or two other films, but we hadn't really dipped our toe full on yet. And the hound shooting animation was the first stop motion film. It took months to create, that was created specifically because of that problem that we faced. And how do we counteract it and produce entertaining media on that issue? We want, quite simply, millions of people seeing this incident that happened. How do we get there? And by producing that animated film with zero ad spend organically, I believe now it's over like 13 million views on that particular piece, which was brilliant. We ended the film showing a still image of what actually happened, as you've got that proof point at the end to demonstrate this isn't just fictitious. We haven't just made an animation pretending this takes place. And it was a first real big test study of dealing with that problem of how do you get around a graphic incident and ensure it's seen by as many people as possible.
There's so many interesting things you said there regarding entertainment. I think is an interesting word because I think when people think entertainment, they think, ha ha ha, let's have fun. Whereas in reality, it's about engagement, isn't it? We're entertained by all sorts of. I'm entertained by like sad films. That's an entertainment as well. So there's like a hook there you're talking about, which is really interesting, and like how there's worries about trivializing, but not really because you're in the entertainment here is like a version of the truth, and you're using aesthetics to bring that across. And then the animation stuff's interesting. Through interviews I've done in the past of like different kind of artistry in animal rights, the audience gives us license to tell stories a specific way. So for example, when I've talked to Sawyer the cow, the drag artist, it's very much Sawyer is a drag artist, so she has a license to be cheeky and sassy and tell people about the animal rights issues and not be preachy because that's the whole thing. Drag is preachy. So there's a license there. The audience accept what she says because they're at a drag show. If it was activist on the street, then maybe they'll go, I'm not talking to them because they're preaching at me, but because they're a drag artist, it's expected. And the same with animation of I'm expecting to follow this because when my experience with animations is a story. And a lot of animations are stories about animals, especially in our childhood. Like The Animals of Farther Than Wood, which again, it was a children's program, but my goodness, it was brutal in some parts. I mean, Watership Down is one of the most haunting animations around from the 70s. So obviously, you're not targeting children, you're targeting everyone who would listen, which is absolutely what animal rights activists want. They want everyone to listen to the issue because it's a dire issue. Do you believe there's something in there where the audience swiping through that it captures their attention because it has links to entertainment, has links to the audience. It's giving you a license to go, okay, I'll listen to you because it appeals to my own experience of animation.
Yeah, 100%. Because it's a format. I mean, you explained it really, really well. People's guards are down. Psychologically, it's so strange. For whatever reason, people are so emotionally open to then hearing you out and in viewing what's about to come, where they just completely aren't when it comes to real life video. I guess because a lot of it's bearable, it's a lot more digestible and mentally doable to quite intense graphic situations in a way that is shown in a palatable, less stressful way, because ultimately what is being shown through animated form isn't real. There's not um you're not faced with the suffering firsthand immediately. I mean, the really lovely part of that process creatively is you have complete license and control over exactly what happens and what is seen every second. I mean, the problem majorly with real footage, of course, is there's always issues with it. Even the best, most clear footage of fox hunting, there'll be angle problems or the footage is a bit blurry or the speed at which the fox runs past, you can't see the emotion or the fear in that particular animal, or you'll have accusations of, well, where did this actually occur or take place. There's always something undermining real life um, evidence, and we love the fact that as people directing every single scene and every 1 second frame, you're in complete control of, like, the zoom in on the animal's face or the cutaway to what you want to show in terms of the story build up for that animal to develop that empathy with the audience. I mean, we have been accused, and there have been some frustrated by our supposedly Disneyfying animals. The facial expressions, for instance, of the wild animals that we show in our films are very human-like, which has had a few people say, we shouldn't be doing that, or that's not right, or this isn't realistic enough. We've tried to counteract that with me saying previously how now we always ensure there's an image or a 1 second still shot from what actually happened. So, for instance, our most recent film about banning snares, we then followed that up with a carousel piece of content on Instagram with scene by scene showing each individual animal that is suffering, that inspired every single shot in that film with real life proof. That post performed really decently, definitely did better as a follow-up to that animation compared to if we just released it normally as a piece of content. It was an interesting one too, I think, in getting across, no, this is actually really happening. I mean, the first slide was titled "This animation wasn't fiction," with a still of what they'd most likely already consumed days before. So it was nice. I mean, we'll probably do that going forwards with follow-up pieces. But yeah, as you said, they just are such a nice format for getting people being completely open-minded to what's to come. I think there's a respect element of deep down, everyone knows how long it takes for animations to be created and made. You know, like the big studios, it's always talked about how laborious and time consuming it is, and with stop motion, how intricate the process is. I think there's immediately subconsciously that degree of, I'll hear this out because I respect the fact this is something that's been created and there's been time taken over this, and it's not just another throwaway 5 minute piece that's been made for social media to have a shelf life of 1 hour. I think is an element of it, of people feel more, and I've done it myself with other films other people have made in the space. I mean, Earthling Ed did a brilliant one, I believe, around the Matilda the pig, and a beautiful film if people haven't seen it. And I shared that. I whacked on WhatsApp and I'm like, share, share, share to like every person because they won't feel as attacked, or I think in receiving it, you're going to think, oh, it's an animation. This is going to be too mentally hard to watch and consume. I can confront that a bit easier than something that's just, oh, here's 5 minutes of like shocking undercover slaughterhouse footage. You're not going to want to put yourself through it. And as a result, I mean, the numbers of shares of people pinging the animations to people in their friends and contact list is like super, super high, which of course gets viewer rates up as well. Yeah, those are the core reasons why, as pieces of media content, they work so nicely. You know, you're getting thousands more followers. If you have a clear call to action at the end, you can obviously convert those emotional, angry people. As you've said, the purpose with this, it's like productive entertainment. And you hit the nail on the head when you said around traditionally forms of entertainment, you immediately think of something that's funny or something that's like a humorous for whatever reason. But there are productive forms of entertainment that can make you feel sad, angry, and emotional, but you still want to consume them. In the same way people will watch, you know, the post office scandal, ITV drama. You go into it knowing it's going to be entertaining to you, but on issues that are really, really like piss you off and like are angering you, and you're left watching that show like impassioned to feel like this is an injustice, like something needs to be done on this. And in the same way, these films are purely based around emotionally riling people up. I'll be completely transparent about that. Like we want to get people to the stage where after that minute they're upset and angry, and ultimately and sadly, whether it's right or wrong, and that is the world we're in with social media, anger is the highest currency. If we can get people angry, that ultimately is what every other creator is doing. It's how we're steered in content. It's how we're paid out by Facebook in terms of ad revenue, is how many ads are displayed in comments. And you only get comments on posts if people feel angry about something and it causes debate and people respond to each other. And it's the same goes with producing the animations. You know, they're really effective way of getting people really riled up because they're open, their emotional guards are completely down, and you can hold them for 30 or 40 seconds with really high impact stuff that's like built solely around ensuring every second has action and every second is entertaining and you can't look away, and gets to that climax point where the animal's about to be killed or is killed. We always do tend to end on a bad ending. We've not produced, I think, to my knowledge, any films other than one where the animal is saved, purely because providing the solution within the film is not the purpose. The solution to the audience you're conveying is coming through them signing the petition, is coming from them taking a direct action in that moment in their own life. If you provide the solution and say the answers already happened in the film they watched, you're going to be left with a feeling of, there's people out there doing that thing, or that animal is being saved by that group. You know, I'm less likely to then feel the urgent need emotionally to respond and have to sign that petition or donate or do what we then want them to do. And the band snares animation was a really good example. I believe it's pretty much the best performing animation we've ever done in terms of statistics. It's got over, I think, 6 million views now across socials, exploded on TikTok, over 1.5 million likes. Half of the people watch the entire film, which is really good retention rate. And it ultimately led to 60,000 people signing the petition to ban snares from a film over a 3-day period, which is just like blew us away. And 25,000 of those 60,000 joined a mailing list. And this is from no ad spend and a film that took a month to make. And we gained 30,000 followers off the back of it. So you're getting data, you're getting 60,000 individual petition letters being sent to ministers on this issue. We're getting thousands, you're getting responses back saying, like, we get the point, we get the message. It's worked super effectively. We deliberately set up the petition in a way where you click send and it pre-fills in your own individual emails. It doesn't come from us, to try and get around, politicians just blocking mass send operations, and to get a 25% growth to our mailing list. At that point, we were at about 100,000 only 2 weeks ago, to then jump to 125,000 off the back of one film was a really, really good recent example of what a film can deliver an organization in terms of like core actual metrics, and return on investment is ridiculous, like from what you get back. That's the core reason we're doubling down next year and are producing at least 20 new animated films. They just work so nicely. They work so brilliantly with the algorithms for different platforms. It's a really nice hack. If you try and show the same footage even on TikTok, where you have guns being shown or birds being shot, and we've put out multiple videos where like a gun is just in shot and it will get removed, taken down immediately. You can't show weapons. And for whatever reason, if you show the same things, or extreme suffering, or animals being shot with guns in animated form, they have no issue with it, and they pump it through the For You page, and you can get millions of people to see it because it's animated and not real footage. And for as long as that algorithm is still the way it is, we need to take as much advantage as possible of it. And it's why I'm constantly ranting about animations and how impactful they are for organizational growth. And it's why the more I speak to people about this and to other groups, I'm constantly pitching to them, please use this form of media to grow as an organization, to get your campaigns out there to loads of people and to grow your audience base. People really like them. So many people I meet only know of us because they've come through the animations that they see on naturally on their For You page. We're breaking out of that really frustrating, endless echo chamber where it's just a few thousand people seeing the same shocking, cruel footage of things that are taking place, and it's not working. The old school methods of sticking to that approach of putting out imagery and video of graphic animal suffering is just not the solution. It's not, we're not winning. There's still a place for it. There's a reason why we invest big time in undercover investigations. You still need the evidence. You still need factually to be able to point to, well, this is going on because this is the proof. And they back up research and they underscore the articles, and every campaign is built still on having the real life footage. But from the best way of actually getting people aware of it and seeing what's happening, animations, yeah, as of now, are really one of the best ways of going about doing that.
It's so exciting. Just hearing that from the inside. It's so interesting just from hearing about how you've got such a quick line in understanding your audience. The data's all there and you can just react so quickly. And then I love that idea of, in a way, the animations are conveying and communicating the truth, and then you're backing it up. You're describing a creative process in, like, for example, if you put on a theatre show, you put on a film, you go, here's the inspiration for it, and here's what happened. And you're going, well, here's the truth, and here's what we've come up with to introduce you and to the truth and make it accessible for you, and it reaches you and it compels you. It feels like you've really hit yeah, the nail on the head with that. And the hack, that sounds fascinating. That it's like you're subverting a few things. You're subverting technology to to the best we can get the information out, but you're also subverting your audience in a good way. It's not sinister. You're able to reach these eyes and these ears through creativity and through artistry, which is really exciting to hear. I'm just wary of the time, so I suppose just any last words on 10 years from now? What does that look like?
A lot more animations. I think it's
Yeah.
gonna be, I mean, on the creative front, we don't want to stop where we are. I mean, ultimately, the mission is how do we find the new type of creative product like animations, but something that's a bit different. We will probably experiment more with blending real life footage to animation too. So potentially starting off with animation and then it blurs in and out between the two simultaneously throughout the piece. We're going to be doing some really interesting films next year that tell stories in different ways, lots more stop motion pieces, lots more. Another great part of them is they're a brilliant way too of collaborating with celebs and bringing big names into it. As sad and tragic as it is to admit, most celebs and people with Instagram followings want cool looking stuff on their profiles. They want to be engaged with projects that are palatable, that aren't too like distressing for their existing followers, that they know will get good engagement, and they're quite fun things to be involved with and a very low effort asking someone, can you voice this 20-second line? They've proved so brilliantly of accessing audiences of other influencers and celebs who traditionally may not do too much for animal rights or do much animal related work, who want to get involved, like Gabrielle Aplin, the singer, who's got like a really big audience, collaborated with the most recent Snare film. Of course, have relied so much on people like Chris Packham, but Dr. Amir Khan, like Sam Carter, great example from the band Architects, who traditionally hasn't posted too much around issues of animal suffering on his feeds. But we developed that piece deliberately in a black and white style because that's what his Instagram feed was. We looked through his feed and were like, how can we get the perfect balance where this will aesthetically fit his brand as well as develop and put forward a really hard hitting message. So it tapped into what that creative person would want and how it can also achieve results. I mean, that film was seen by millions of people. Again, it used the narrative of I had no idea that foxes were killed in snares because of the shooting industry, and it told the whole story of someone who didn't have a clue about what goes on, which was a really yeah, which is that type of creative process of bringing in dozens more big influential people to collaborate on the films is also going to be a fun idea long term. Also integrating AI and not as the enemy, but AI in ways where creatively it might speed up the process. We might start using it to color backgrounds more quickly, for instance, that currently takes up a lot of time. I'd like to think there will always be a place for traditional real art. I think we're still a long way off in terms of AI being good enough to replicate things similar to what we're making on that front. But yeah, next 10 years is going to be exciting. Of course, we've just launched our campaign to end bird shooting, which is going to be longer than a 10-year campaign. That's going to be such a slog. I can't reveal too much, but we've all I will say is we've got like big things coming in relation to that campaign by the end of this year. We want to kickstart a new movement in this country to dismantle and shut down that industry. With regards to hunting, it's in a brilliant place thanks to foundations laid by activists on the ground, and we've helped, I think, push the issue to different new audiences. We're almost there now with winning that one. But yeah, it's going to be at least another 10 years, if not more. I've got a lot of fighting energy left in me. I really look forward to seeing how Protect the Wild will grow and develop over that time. But ultimately, always trying to innovate and be as dynamic as possible and test, find and practice and test new strategies and ways of doing things that haven't been done before. And then when things work, really going to town on those things is always the strategy and way to go about stuff. I'm excited, really happy with what we've done in the last 10 years. I think we've really made some big progress to change that conversation around hunting. It's now so toxic. The same now needs to be done for bird shooting. We're still relentlessly working to expose and bring about an end to the badger cull as soon as possible. It's disgusting that that is still going on. And more broadly, trying to give that voice to all British wild animals that might be suffering or being persecuted in different ways. Because sadly, where humans are concerned, we're bloody good at harming and pissing around with wild animals in the UK. We've still got a long way to go and a lot of things to end, but I'm dedicated. We've got a brilliant team, and it's going to be a big next 10 years and beyond, I'm sure.
Well, all the power to you. It's so exciting. And thank you so much for sharing all that. There's so much there to pick apart, and it's really, really inspiring. And I compel anyone who hasn't seen your animations to see them because they are so moving and yeah, really impactful. Thank you for your time. And thank you for listening to this episode of the Performing Animal Rights Podcast. A huge thank you to Rob Pownall for joining us and offering such an honest, inspiring look into the journey of Protect the Wild, from a one-person Facebook campaign to a powerhouse of creative advocacy and media innovation. If you'd like to explore Rob's work or see some of the incredible animations we discussed, head to protectthewild.org.uk or follow Protect the Wild across social media. For more episodes, resources, and creative insights into activism, visit performinganimalrights.org. And don't forget, you can also subscribe to our new Substack newsletter for deeper dives into the intersection of performance and animal rights. Thanks for listening, and until next time, goodbye.